Thank you, Wes. That was beautiful. It's always great to start in a good way. So my name is Astokomii Smith. My name translates to calling thunder. Actually, another translation that I've heard of my name is voice of thunder, which I always thought was really ironic because I was such a shy, quiet person that how could I have a name like voice of thunder? Um, so I am from Siksika, one of the 3 tribes of the Blackfoot Confederacy, and that is one of the 5 tribes of Treaty 7. And I'm 21 years old. I'm currently the Indigenous Liaison for the Town of Strathmore. I've been working there for 3 years now. And I was also the 2019 Calgary Stampede First Nation Princess, where I used my platform to raise awareness about mental health and break down the stigma that surrounds it, more specifically with anxiety. So that is a little bit about me. And so I wasn't really sure what to include in this session, really. I've never really hosted anything like this before. But I guess I was just going to start talking about my journey with it. And my journey started probably when I was quite young. I was the type of person to avoid presenting in a classroom. I'd always ask the teacher if I could do it privately. My anxiety was so bad that I would make excuses so that I didn't have to be in a place where I had to interact with people I didn't know. Um, and that kind of pushed me to do like online schooling for about 2 years so that I didn't have to be around that kind of environment. Um, Another aspect of this was how my anxiety affected my connection to culture. So I've been dancing since I was about 4 or 5 years old. Um, and I've never really felt any sort of nervous feeling when I was dancing, even though there's like a big crowd watching, there's, sometimes hundreds of people watching you dance. But yet I was able to dance in front of all these people and not feel nervous. I think it's always been a place of solace for me, actually. But probably when I was maybe 15, 16 years old, I started getting really nervous when I would dance, like either right before I dance, I'd get really like this kind of sick feeling, or even when I was dancing. And a lot of times I would actually have to like walk off when I was dancing because it was just too much. And it didn't really occur to me that it was because of my own mental health and I wasn't able to do something like that. Um, and I think that's when it really kind of hit me that, okay, this is an issue that I need to deal with. I need to talk to someone about it. And I guess in a way it kind of hurt not being able to do something that is supposed to be healing and makes you feel good, and something that I've been doing since I was a little girl. So I started to open up to family, mostly my grandma, my parents, and just kind of let them know that I was dealing with these feelings. And almost immediately after I started opening up to people, it felt like weight was lifted off my shoulder, and that it felt good knowing that I didn't have to carry these things alone and that I could share these feelings with other people. And a lot of times they were going through the same thing, so I could relate with them. And yeah, it just got a lot easier. I didn't really have that feeling inside anymore. And then I went to school in person again. I decided to take a leap, I guess, and go back to school in person, which was really kind of scary. I went to school on my reserve for my last year of high school, and it was probably the best experience that I had with school just because I got to be around other Indigenous people. I think most of my life I went to schools with non-Indigenous people, and it was always kind of hard to relate to other people, or just to have someone around who like knows what you're talking about is a really good feeling. And so I graduated there. I think it was 2018. I graduated 2018, and I actually graduated with the Governor General Award for highest academics, which is, little old me who couldn't even go to school, and I graduated with that, was a really big accomplishment. And it was actually through the school that they recommended that I should try for this job in Town of Strathmore, which was for the position that I'm currently working at, which is the Indigenous Liaison for Town of Strathmore. And working with people was, a very scary thought at first, because, I get really anxious. I have a hard time connecting, really, just because I'm not a very open person. But I thought it would be good to kind of get out of my shell. And I actually really liked what the position kind of was, which was for Indigenous engagement and making the community more inclusive. So when I did that, I had to work a lot with people. I had to speak a lot in front of people. Luckily for me, it was small groups at first. Like, we did Indigenous awareness training, and it was good to do that because it was something that I liked to talk about, and something that I had knowledge about. And it really kind of helped me in that aspect. And then slowly started kind of coming out of my shell more. And someone had recommended that I should try for the Calgary Stampede First Nation princess. And that is an even scarier thought than what my job was. So I thought about it for a little while, and then I decided no, I probably couldn't do it, just because like it's a pretty big role, and you have to talk in front of people all the time. And but there's always been like two voices inside my head. Like, there's one where that says that I can't do it, and then there's one where it says that I can do it. And for a long time I was listening to the one that was telling me I couldn't, but suddenly the voice that was telling me I could was getting a lot louder. So I started to listen to it, and I said, you know what, well, even if I don't get the opportunity to do this, it's good experience. I can always try again next year. And so I told my parents, I told my grandparents that I wanted to try for this. And they actually were kind of hesitant. They were asking me like, "Oh, are you sure? Like, you don't want to wait till next year?" Because I'm a quiet person. And but I was like, "No, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway." So I did it. And we kind of usually go into this role with a message that we want to share with people. And so, since anxiety has always been a big obstacle in my life, I decided it wasn't going to be an obstacle for me anymore. And more so, it was going to be some type of motivation for me to show others that even with dealing with anxiety or mental health issues, that they could still do big things like um, be a princess. I'm not saying you have to be a princess, but you could do big things. And the competition process was pretty scary itself. We had to do public speaking. We had to do like mingling events, which is kind of where you just go to an event with a bunch of people that you don't know. They're usually volunteers, people who work with Stampede, and just a whole mix of people. And some of them were judges, but you didn't know. And so you kind of had to talk to everyone. And that was pretty nerve-wracking to me. I'm not the type of person to go up to someone and just start a conversation. So I really had to push myself for that one, but I think I did okay. um, yeah, so that was scary. But I also kind of realized that um, with going into this role, a lot of people that you meet, they're probably only going to meet you once. So you have to make a good impression. I think that's what that kind of showed me, was that you have to make a good impression, because that's pretty much what you're doing with a lot of people, is you're meeting them probably once in your life, maybe. And yeah, and then we had to do like an essay, interviews, and interviews are really scary for me. I remember going into my job interview very, very nervous. And yeah, and then to my surprise, I got chosen for this title, which was, yeah, I was just amazed and surprised, and then a little scared even, because now I actually got it. So now I have to do all these big things. But no, my experience with the Calgary Stampede was phenomenal, to say the least. I got to travel a lot. I went to Australia and Paris and um, yeah, just places in the States, and just places where I probably would have never been before if it wasn't for the role. And of course, I had to do a lot of public speaking. I went to over 400 events in the time span of a year, and some of those were like definitely the same day. I think during Stampede alone, we had 10 events a day. So that's 10 days, 10 events a day. That's 100 events. And yes, spoke at most of them. And it definitely did get easier. Like, going in there, I was always scared to speak. I still get nervous before I'm going to speak. Probably even just before this, I woke up thinking, um, like, oh no, what am I going to say? Like, I don't know, just all these thoughts, of course. But as always, the voice that tells me I can do it has been a lot louder, which is good. And so with with the Calgary Stampede, I remember going to Australia, and it was just me, my chaperone, and I remember we had to do this like show kind of thing, just to talk about like the Calgary Stampede and Indigenous people, Treaty 7. And so I had to do my little thing, and I had to dance. And I remember this is probably about halfway through my reign. So I shouldn't be as nervous as I was feeling, but I still was. I remember getting that sick feeling again, like I don't know if I can do it. Like, am I gonna be sick on stage or something? But I just had to keep reminding myself that it's I'm not sick. It's just my mind making me think that. And it's crazy how your mind can do that, to make you like tricking your body into thinking that you're sick or something like that. So I've always been trying to identify that it's not real. It's just in my mind. And then I try to go through my coping mechanisms, and I've been really good at getting some more coping mechanisms, especially talking to other people about it. And because I find that when you talk to other people about it, sometimes they know something that you don't know. And it's always good to learn from each other. And yeah, I've always found comfort in sharing that with other people now. Before, it was like really scary to share people your feelings, especially if you're feeling anxious. I think there's definitely a much bigger stigma before about it, that like I used to think that if I told something, like someone something about that they would think that something's wrong, or that I wasn't capable of doing things that I am capable of doing. But yeah, it's definitely become a lot easier for me to share that. Um, yeah, I guess that's been my journey with it so far. It's gotten a lot easier, definitely improved a lot. I actually when I was princess, I did a show, like I did they communities across Canada. And so on this show, they pick people from the community and they tell stories. And usually it's about like it's a comedy show. And so they picked me because they really liked my story of dealing with anxiety and overcoming it. And so not only do I have to speak about anxiety to all these people, now I have to do it on TV. So, but it was a great opportunity. You know, I always think when I'm doing these things that there's someone going to be watching, someone going to be listening who may have been where I was years ago, where I felt like I couldn't do it. And, you know, my favorite part was like when people would actually come up to me afterwards, or they'd message me, or just tell me like how much better it made them feel. And you know, or they'd tell their kid that who has a lot of anxiety that, you know, this person who has anxiety just like you is going around talking about it throughout the world. So yeah, that was a big motivation for me, was all those people who couldn't do it. And yeah, I think definitely the biggest crowd that I spoke in front of, which was during the Stampede. I spoke in front of 30,000 people during the grandstand show. And honestly, I think I still get nervous speaking in front of like small groups of like 5-10 people. But surprisingly, at this point, I had no nervous feelings. I don't know what it was. I think it was maybe because I was looking at my grandma in the crowd. Like, you know, there's 30,000 people and all I can see is my grandma. But I think I was also overwhelmed with emotion too, that I was actually speaking in front of that many people. And I didn't feel nervous, which is such a great feeling, even though I still get nervous sometimes. But yeah, it was a really great feeling. And again, I just kept reminding myself that I'm doing this for those who don't think that they can do it. And, you know, I kept thinking back on that moment, like, you know, people were watching me speak in front of 30,000 people, and most of them probably don't know that I have like such bad anxiety and that public speaking is really scary to me. But no, they had no idea. So I did it for all those young people who are scared and anxious to speak in front of people, to show that they can do it. So yeah, that's kind of my journey. So now I guess I'll share some of the coping mechanisms that I've learned along the way. Um, so there's probably tons of situations where one might experience anxiety, but we're going to try to focus on public speaking. So I think it's really important to know that being nervous or anxious is completely normal. Like I said, I still get nervous. It doesn't matter if you've done public speaking for years or if it's your first time. If you're feeling nervous, then it's totally normal. The difference is it just becomes a lot easier, and you know how to cope with it, and you know what grounds you in those situations. Like during my reign with the Calgary Stampede, like I said, went over to 400 events and I still get nervous. I was nervous before this session even, and so, you know, it's okay, it's normal. I think I forget who it was who told me, but I think it was someone that I met along the way, and they just kind of told me like, it's good to be nervous because it means that you're like excited about it, you know? And if you weren't nervous, then you know, good for you, I guess. um the second most important thing to remember, I think, in my opinion, is to breathe. Usually, before I'm about to speak, I breathe in for 4 seconds and then I breathe out for 4 seconds. Repeat if necessary. I usually do it a few times before I actually kind of calm my nerves. And then remember to take your time when speaking. I find, especially if I'm reading off something, that I will be speaking a lot faster than normally. And this is so the audience can really take in what you're saying. And of course, so you don't get out of breath. You don't know how many times I've read off a script or something and I've been out of breath already halfway through. So I've definitely learned the hard way through that one, that you gotta take it slow. And I guess a good reminder would be like, if there's a period in the sentence, to just kind of pause, take a second, and then continue on with the next sentence. Another good tip that I found was like, you can add some humor or a personal touch to it. I know people love to laugh and, they like to connect with their speaker. So for me, like for my speech during the competition, my whole speech was about anxiety and showing others that they can do it, which I think is something that not a lot of people talk about in a positive way. And so I really tried to speak positively about it so that people can connect to it. And yeah, I think it did, because I did have people come up to me afterwards and tell me how grateful they are to hear it in a positive way, which is good, because growing up I never really heard about it in a positive way. And I think more so now people are talking about it a lot more, which is good. And then, like, add a little humor. I know for my end speech that I gave, like during the, like when it was the end of my reign, I tried to throw in some jokes in there. Like, I think I told them like just how many events I went to, and we had to print like 10,000 postcards for me to hand out during this time. And I was telling the crowd how like I was thanking my family, and then I was thanking my grandparents for showing me that like nothing is impossible. In fact, I think they actually handed out more postcards than I did. So it's nice to add a little something in there. It's kind of not only eases the crowd too. Another good tip, I guess, would be to practice. No need to memorize. I think I'm really bad at memorizing stuff. So, but it's good to know what you're going to be talking about. I think it's good when you're talking about something that you like to talk about. It makes it so much easier. And then plus you have the knowledge to talk about it too. When you make a mistake, like say mispronounce your word, or maybe you lose your spot on where you're reading from and have to find it again, don't worry, because although it may have stood out for you, I guarantee the audience either didn't notice or they just didn't care. Also, I find that when I'm speaking, my voice is very shaky. I think it's shaky almost every time I public speak, but then like I'll tell someone afterwards, like, oh, I was so nervous, like my voice was so shaky. And they're like, no, I didn't even know, which is good. So, what may have seemed like a big thing to you really wasn't. And especially like I find like sometimes when I'm reading something and I lose the spot, I think that it took me like 10 seconds to find it, but no, it was probably like a millisecond to find the spot. So yeah, I guess that's my coping mechanisms. I guess I just wanted to ask, like, if people are comfortable with saying their kind of coping mechanisms, because I think it's really great to share, and those are mine.
Hi, everyone. That was a really good presentation, by the way. I like that. Public speaking is one of the things that I've struggled with too, and most of it was just due to self-confidence. And I would always compare myself to others, which is something that, kind of set me back in terms of like when I would talk or try to share something, share an idea. I would just be lacking that self-confidence to just share about like an idea I had or something. But I started to acknowledge it. That was the first step in my journey of being able to, public speak or even just share in a circle that I'm not comfortable with or something like that. And then it was also kind of educating myself a little bit. There was this book, it's called the Fine Art of Small Talk. And so I read that, and that was really helpful just to kind of get a conversation going and kind of things like that. But when it all comes down to pretty much just confidence, and that's something I've been like working on like pretty much every day, I guess. And it's really coming around so far. And it's opportunities like this, like being able to share and present on behalf of my community, or it all helps in the end. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Astokomii. That was a really good presentation. And thank you so much for using your platform to raise more awareness about social anxiety and public speaking, because I think it is something that affects a lot of people that not a lot of people talk about. And definitely for me, I've been like, I guess all throughout my life, but I found I was like finally overcoming the social anxiety when I was going to university. And then because I was like in classes, so I think it's just like the more you do it, you get more comfortable. But then like just this last couple of years, just been moving around a lot and not a lot of opportunities to talk in front of people. So it's definitely coming back. So it's nice to hear like different coping mechanisms that you gave as well. And I think like, yeah, breathing is super important and it's something that I have to remind myself to do. And yeah, the importance of self-talk, just like negative self-talk and those two voices, I can really relate to that. So yeah, thank you for your tips. We'll try to, I can't offer too many tips on my own because it's something I'm still struggling with right now. And I find especially with COVID and just like the social, like the isolation factor is just kind of making anxiety worse. But I'm looking forward to like just getting out there again and talking to more people and then overcoming it more. So thank you. And thanks for everyone else for offering your suggestions and stories sharing as well.
Hi, Sungi Gabawe, Hosaga Noikwe, Dishnakas. Animosi being Donchi. My name is Mary. That's my English name, Meitwe Ashing. I guess, like over the years working with young people, it always has been, it always goes back to their identity and going back to your roots and to your history of who you are and where you came from. When you are involved with knowledge keepers, elders, and being connected and being engaged with those types of people, they share a lot of stories. They share a lot, a way of life. They transfer that knowledge to the young people, and they teach and they share. It's about education. So and they are able to connect you back to your roots, back to your history. Therefore, once you are able to engage and connect yourself back to a way of life, then you start to build that inspiration. You get inspired by the elders. You get inspired with the things that are, when you see good things happening in your community as well. We motivate the young ones by delivering and showing them, I guess, a good way of life, whether it's through land base and being out on the land. The other thing is that, showing that, the elders and the knowledge keepers and the grandmothers who are in your community, when they know that we care about them, then, they want to work harder. They get motivated to do better, um, for their communities and with anything that they want to do. So when you have, you're building a foundation, and when they have those skills, it inspires them, so they have the confidence. It builds their self-esteem. Um, what to be able to speak publicly, to be able to do things out there publicly. So that's been my experience, working with the young people. They get that inspiration through, the caring elders, the ones that are there, to guide and direct them in a good way, to that, we call it Minobe Madison, a good way of life. So, you know, that's what I can share, working with young people. And, the other thing that I could add is that, like over the last 13 years, I guess, we've had, um, we do the rites of passage teachings with young people. And this is where they learn a lot of their identity, a lot about their role and their responsibility. Um, as a young person, they learn, they know their name. If you're following a clan, they understand their clan system. Um, they we are taught that we are born with a name. You get your colors, and things like that. And but further to that, with the young women, they go through those rites of passage teachings where they start to understand and learn about, about the sacredness of water, about, the very first time that they bleed, and how they are connected to the grandmother moon, how they are connected to and related to Mother Earth. Um, and then to add, for the young men, it's been the same thing. I think it's been about 13 years where the young men in our lodge have also been taken out on the land where they refrain from food and water, and they go out on a vision quest that that they as well are able to connect to the Earth Mother, to the original Earth Mother, and they just stay there to go and find their vision, to go and seek the direction spiritually. And when they sit out on the land, they start to understand and respect the earth by not drinking that water, but also honoring that food, the food sustenance that's there, that Mother Earth provides to us, so that they have that they start to have a greater respect and an understanding about how we are all connected, of how we are all connected and interconnected to all life, the animal life, the water life, the plant life, the medicines, the animals, and so once they have that understanding about how to respect the earth, our mother, the earth, then they understand to respect the female energy, the females, the women, and it goes, and that's vice versa for both men and women. So that's what we've been doing for the last 13 years, and we bring them in, into our lodge every year, during springtime, right after the spring, when new life starts to happen again, and waters start to break and water starts to flow. But because of COVID, we're not able to do that this year. So we're trying to find ways of how we can, continue to work with young people. Yeah, so that's what I can share. I hope what I share helps. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. I could definitely relate to to what's been said too. Like I still get nervous when I see people I've known for years. So it's totally normal to still feel that way. And especially with the identity, I know my culture has really grounded me and helped me in so many ways, more than just with mental health, but spiritually, physically, in all aspects, really. And so I'm thankful for everyone for sharing. And it's I think what it's public speaking is one of the number one fears in the world. So it's okay to feel that way, because apparently a lot of other people feel that way too. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you.